Good morning, everyone. Kieran Swale, Tourism Innovation Specialist at Southern Regional College. And you're very welcome on this Friday morning. It's a frosty one this morning. I was out for a walk and it's frosty. But today, now, this is our penultimate, our second last winter of our winter webinar series. And my good friend and colleague, Jimmy Moore, is going to talk to you this morning about business analytics software. Jimmy is going to talk about what it is, and how small to medium-sized enterprises can use different business analytics software to improve their performance. So this is going to be a very, very useful webinar this morning. What I would ask you to do, first of all, is you're automatically on entry, you are muted, and your camera, I think, is muted on entry 2. If you have any questions, we have a Q&A. If you'd pop your question into the chat window, please, and then we will take questions at the end. And if there's anything that we can't answer, we'll be able to, Jimmy or the rest of the team will be able to follow up. We're ably assisted today, but we have a full team today, and delighted to welcome back Caroline back into, I think, either co-producer or main producer mode. So Caroline, Aisling and Sarah, myself and Jimmy, that's our business support team, but that's only a flavour of this business support team. Okay, this is supported by Connected NI, who continue to support us, and this is really an very important source of support for us. It helps us to do webinars like this and continue our research and development role within the college. So thank you for listening to me so far. Today's presentation is recorded and will go up on our YouTube channel. And if you've registered for this event, you will get a copy of Jimmy's presentation. Jimmy, if you're ready, Jimmy, I'm going to hand over to you.
That's great. Thank you, Kieran. Good morning, everybody. As Kieran explained already, we're going to go through some details of business analytics software and how I can help you. I work for the Business Support and Innovation team in Southern Regional College. My role and the role of the rest of the team is to support small businesses and SMEs, micro businesses, in upskilling support through innovation projects. There's a number of different funding streams that we have, but we'll go through that detail at the end. For myself, I worked at senior management levels in different industries for the last 20 years, mostly in manufacturing, bit of customer service, and a lot of supply chain. And it's a range of sizes of companies, some very small companies, some very big. And my expertise will be in process approach to improvement. It will be like operation excellence, process improvement, and change management. So today I'm going to look at business analytics, and I'm going to look at what it is first of all. And it's quite a technical topic. You know, there's no getting around the fact that there is a fairly decent skill level required to do it, and it's kind of why we're doing this, to get people's interest in getting those skills. So I'm going to keep it a very high level of what it is, and then I'm going to be explaining what it is and what it isn't as well. You know, there's a lot of misconceptions about what business analytics is. People think it's just a bit of software. It's not. It's really a process. So I'm then going to explain how you use it, basically the approach or how it is used at the minute by people that do it. A quick few slides on implementation. Again, it's quite technical, so it's something that you would have to be guided through, but I'll give you a flavour of the type of stuff you need to do, and maybe you get a good idea how long it takes and who you would need to do it. And then just an explanation of the next steps. What can you do? So really, I'm always focused on these webinars about the outcomes, and it's about, for me, it's about clarity on how business analytics might be able to help your business or your organization. This isn't just for business, it could be for large organizations too. And an understanding of the skills you need to implement it. Do you have the person in there? Do you have somebody who could be upskilled? Have they got the attributes? Or do you have to go out and get somebody if this is something you think you need to do? And most importantly for me is the ability to decide, if it's something that you've thought about before, now you can say, okay, yeah, I'm definitely interested, or no, it's not for me. I've got other things to do. I'm not going to think about it again. So that's the outcomes that I expect from the webinar today. So we'll start off with what is business analytics. So I'll start with a very high level, simplistic view, just for the purpose of explanation, just to get into people's heads that this is a process as opposed to a product of some sort. So it always starts with tools and techniques, and this is software. This is stuff that's either written specifically for yourself that you pay for, or an off-the-shelf standard package, or some sort of off-the-shelf that has to be adapted for yourself. There's a wide range of things that can be used, and I'll be explaining more in slides later, the types of things that you can do. Hey, then there's data. So there's data feeding into the tools and techniques. And once the tools do what they're meant to have done, and you've designed it properly, then you will get business insights and actions. So the whole focus of this is it's a process about getting your data, pushing it through a set of tools that will give you good insights and actions that will help you run your business better than you did before. And it's as much automation. These are decisions you probably would have made before, and insights you probably would have been able to achieve yourself. But business analytics is about taking the data that you've used before and very quickly doing it, and doing it as often as you need to do it, as opposed to getting people to do it. So a good definition would be using tools and techniques to turn data into business insights and actions. One I've stolen off somebody else, but I think it's a very appropriate one. So that was a simplistic view. What's the realistic view? Because this impacts about how you go about it as well. So you'll still have your tools and techniques. That doesn't change, and no matter what way you do it, you do need those. You still have some good data. And that good data, if you use it properly through the tools and techniques, will give you good insights and actions, and you'll be able to run your business a bit better. However, in reality, you've also got incorrect data out there. You'll have irrelevant data, which stuff you don't need, but it'll filter through if you pull it through anyway. But the messy data that is in the right format, and you need some work done to it, and there'll be some data you can't get it. So you're going to need to do have some techniques to be able to access the data. On the other side, then, as well as the insights and actions, you will also have noise. This is the information you got through and the reports you're getting that, even though they look like they're useful and they're very interesting, they're not actually helping you in any way. And there's a lot of that about it. And worse still, if you're getting messy data or poor data, it might well be that you're getting reports in that are actually leading to misinformation and poor decisions in your business. So, as I said, it's a process, and it's not just about these three areas. It's also about two other things, which are cleansing and filtering, which, as you go through the process, that becomes just as important as where you get your data, how you get your data, the tools that you use, and the reports that you use. If you're not basically doing these two parts of the process as well, then it's not going to work properly for you. So that's what it is. But of course, with everything else, it's a big area. It's very complicated. There are different types, and you'll recognize them. So first of all, there's the business analytics that looks at what happened. You're looking backwards and say, well, okay, the stuff has happened. We're in a mess. Please tell me what happened. Then it's the analytics that looks at, well, what's going to happen. Can you please tell me how things are going to look in the future? And then the really powerful stuff is using data to say, okay, what do we need to do? Because the value add you have for a business is in the decisions that you make as a manager or as an owner or whatever. So the what happened stuff, most people have seen this before. Most people are already using it. So it's trend analysis. For sales to be spend, or for purchasing to be spend analysis. Everybody now in any company or organization has seen performance KPIs. So that's a form of business analytics. And for big organizations, the ones that are using the bigger data, they're looking at buying patterns. They're looking at daily what people are doing, and that's data corrects. And they're looking backwards to see how that works to predict what they're going to do in the future. Then it's the future looking analytics. Those are simple sales forecasts, or forecasts of what type of business you're going to do in the future, or the amount of business you're going to do in the future. For manufacturing organizations, a lot of them are trying to predict their quality levels of their production based on what they've done in the past. And again, the bigger organizations, they're trying to predict consumer behavior based on trends. So they'll be pulling massive streams of data to try and predict that type of thing, on top of the likes of Amazon and Apple and people like that. And then you have your what we need to do. And that's really about using the analysis for it to come up with a proposal or a suggestion of what you should do. So these do use the what happened and what's going to happen. So they go the top one and the middle one would feed into the bottom one. And I give examples of this, but if you're using it in supply chain setting, it'll be changing a high risk supplier. It's identified that it's high risk in the past is identified as going to be the same parts you used before. So the chances are you're going to have a poor supplier in the future. So the business analytics would come up with the proposal of you need to use this, and maybe come up with other suppliers that you could use that are performing better. A lot of people use for optimizing pricing based on the time of year or on the patterns they're seeing with consumer behavior, or for something like a large organization, a public organization, it might be that you might have to reconfigure materials usage. Like I was involved in a project recently that did just this type of thing. Department heads had been looking at the type of spend they had, but they used business analytics to start getting into the actual detail of where the spend came from, when it was done, why it was done. And it started changing their decisions about how they were going to set their spend organization, and then massive improvement and efficiencies. And our organizations use this to do things like segmenting their customer base as well. So all of this is about, and he says, why would we do this? It's all about adding value. So even if you're looking backwards, you're adding value because you're trying to improve on your mistakes. If you're looking at the forward thing, you're trying to predict what you need in the future. And if you're doing the what we need to do, that's real high value add end stuff, like that you're really trying to improve your business by using your data. So what we say is like there's definitely value add to all of these, but the farther you go down this list, the more value add there is to it. So what we're trying to do is trying to get to that bottom, quite simply. So how is it used? It's really used depending on the type and the size of problem you have, and that's normally linked directly to the type and size of organization you're in. So it's really all around the amount of data that you have to use, and because of that, the power of the systems that are used to process the data. So when we think about how it's used, it's same broad approach is used no matter what the type is. You still have data, you still have to have tools, techniques, and what you're after is insights and actions. But really, it can be broken down into different areas depending on the size of the problem and the size of the data you have to use. And just for the purpose of explanation, I've broken it down into three different structures. It's simple or ubiquitous. These are units everywhere at the minute, and you do see it in most organizations. There's traditional stuff that been set up for the last 15, 20 years, but it has to be designed. There's an element of high level of skill requirement. And then something that's come about in the last 6 to 8 years, big data. So our organizations pull data from everywhere and using it to inform their decisions. I put down 3 sections here. It's really a spectrum, to be honest. Like and it is the case that there's a lot of companies that are using several different approaches and using them all at the same time to try and get better decisions. But that's about resource. So we'll start off with simple. And as an example, I'm just using the Ford Mondeo or Volkswagen Passat of IT systems. It's the good old Excel. So it's one of those ones much aligned by IT snobs, but it hasn't gone away. It's actually getting better. So it's everybody's got access to it. It's actually become very powerful in doing the things that I explained. Like it can go out to much used data sources now. Most people are using SharePoint or Google Sheets or Access or using some forms to get customer information, and some are even I'm talking about small businesses here. Some are investing in servers now as well because they can pay for it by the moment, and Azure would be an example of that. And Power Query can go out and pull the data in, and it can do the cleansing that I talked about earlier too. You can use bits of code within Excel now to make sure the data you're getting through, and it acts as a storage location as well. So it means you don't have to go and buy server space. And they're now. It's got its own functionality to give the reports. So the outputs and the filtering to give the meaningful insights can be provided within Excel. But what we have seen in the market recently is there's been a proliferation of packages, new packages that actually do this business reporting for you. They're really good. I've used Click and Power BI myself. Tableau is probably the third biggest one in the world at the minute. And they're excellent. They can do some cases they can do the cleansing and the filtering as well for the data that you require, and they can do any type of reports, and they can automate it. They can put it to the web. So they're very powerful as well. Just to say, a lot of people think that those are the data analytics or the business analytics. They're not. They're a tool to be able to display stuff and to do the filtering and some of the cleansing. You still have to go through this process of having somewhere to store your data, and you go in Power BI and store that, and just take it from other sources. And you have to know where your data is, and you have to point it in the right direction. So that's the simple ubiquitous. A lot of small businesses are doing this already. A lot of manufacturing, a lot of service, especially service, they need to have their a lot of data at their fingertips all the time. So lots of examples of this type of thing, and it's not overly difficult to do. There is a skill level, there's no doubt about it, but it's not difficult. And once you do it once, you start doing it everywhere.
Jimmy, may I come in just there, because that's a really good slide you've got there. So at the center, by the way, Tableau, I have some familiarity of them all, which is fantastic. It's I suppose in marketing terms, it's graphically really, really good. But obviously there's the cost to all of these. I like the way that you've presented that, and the Power Query. So for businesses listening to this, you need to have a good handle, if I'm right, correct me if I'm wrong here, a good handle on Excel.
Yeah, Excel again is a tool. So you have to have a good understanding of what data you require. And Excel is a very good tool for pulling that data in and for storing it in the right way. So Microsoft, it used to be rubbish. It used to be poor doing that type of thing, and you had to have a real good design hit on you to be able to do it. But they have designed functionality within the standard Excel now, which will guide you through that process and point you in the right direction. There still is a certain amount of local knowledge you have to have, and a certain amount of skill. And they've opened up their source to reprogram their query section of Excel. So once you learn how to do that, you can actually adapt what Microsoft put there.
What is the A there? Forgive my ignorance in red. What does that represent?
On your slide. So that's Microsoft Access. That's Access. The old database tool for. So some people are still using that. It was the old way of doing it. So it was a case of you would just store all your data on Microsoft Access.
And what's Azure? What's it?
Azure is it's a fairly low cost server option. So it's if you don't want to, a lot of small businesses have information on SharePoint, and they store it on Google Sheets in different departments. The next step is to go to an ERP system. Can be very expensive. There's kind of an interim solution where you can store a lot of information on simple databases, and Azure is just an example of one of those.
Okay.
All right. They've set up pricing options. There's other Microsoft and other groups that they can do it, but they've set up pricing options to suit small businesses. Basically, you pay by the month. It's not.
Yeah. Okay. So just to summarize, you need a good. I like the way you've done that diagram, because before you can jump into Power BI or Click or Tableau, really central to this is a good understanding of the functionality of Excel.
Correct. Excel is acting as a tool to get your data in the right format and get it correct. Do the cleansing. It's the grab and cleanse. Don't want to get into too much technical jargon here in this webinar, but grab and cleanse is what the IT people will talk about. Once you've got that done, and there's it does take a good bit of time to do it right and a lot of testing. Once you've got it set up, Click View, Power BI, Tableau are easy to do. They're just sandbox type stuff to play by it and figure out what you need to do.
There, you've learned something new today. All right, thanks, Jimmy.
That's no problem. So the next one is the traditional or design view. So anybody who's worked for a middling or large size organization will have worked with an ERP system. These are just some of the more modern ones. They're a lot more flexible than the old ones that me or Kieran would have worked with 20, 25 years ago. But the thing is that they still store stuff in tables. They still have, they're very rigid. That's the problem with them. And businesses aren't. Businesses are developing and are changing and have different requirements all the time. And what a lot of, I'm not suggesting that they're unscrupulous, but a lot of these businesses that sold you one of these ERP systems didn't tell you that they charge you every time you want to change something. So again, smart people come about and said, okay, right, you can get into the tables that are in these systems. You've got the passwords, you can let them in, and there's fairly simple query software, and I can verify that it's fairly simple because I have actually learned SQL myself, and I'm not an expert by any stretch of our imagination, so it's not that difficult to learn. And I've been told Python's the same, and it'll do the same thing. It'll point questions and it'll do the cleansing, the grab and cleansing to these systems. They all have their different formats. But once you have that sort of low level understanding of the query software, you can point it to wherever you want, and you can pull it in whatever format you want. So it'll take it'll do the grab and cleanse, but it'll get it into a format that you can put it into a data storage unit of your own. It might well be your own server that you have on site, you have a large PC, but it'll get it into a format that then you can go into the same tools that we discussed before. That'll give you the lovely graphics and the very clear indication of where your problems are, or where you need to go, or the sales that you need, or the customers you need to be focused on. So again, it's the same process. It's identifying where your data is, grabbing and cleansing it, storing it into an area, and basically deciding on how you want to present it. That'll give you the business information you require to make better decisions. So it's the same approach, slightly different, probably takes more and probably a bit more design to it. And by design, I mean it would have to be a cross-functional team to make sure you're not going to do something that is going to mess up with another department within the organization. This is normally done with organizations that are slightly bigger. It's some SMEs who are growing quickly. We're probably considering this at the minute though. So it is done that. And finally, there's big data. And I'm not going to go into this too much because it is too technical. So it's really a case of there's all these streams of data floating out there in the internet at the minute, which are, if you take them in properly and use them, they're really, really powerful. And that's, you just think about how much you spend on Amazon or online shopping. Those people are using this to make sure you buy from them, and they're very successful. So they're obviously doing something right. Just to explain you how to do it, this data again follows the same process. You've got the data that's out there. You have to have somebody, something that pulls the data in, and basically the way they work is in nodes, and they work in clusters. These are just servers that are doing different things. So there'll be a team of people that will have designed a cluster to pull all the data required for the company, and then they do the same thing. They filter it into these types of packages to give you the information you require. So this is very much, the manager level will be getting the reports, but there's an awful lot of work being done in the middle to try and make sure they get the right amount of data. That's for bigger organizations, very big organizations, a lot of data come through. There are options out there now. There's a thing called data scraping and new standard data scraping packages, which will do this for smaller organizations. If you need smaller amounts of information, they've got standard packages that can identify these are the 200 or 300 bits of information I need, and I need it updated every hour or every day, whatever it is, and they will do that for you. So there is this option to do this type of thing for smaller organizations as well, but it's not something you would design yourself. You would have to go to somebody who provides a service and identify what you require. So it's not something I suggest you do in-house, definitely not. It's far too technical. So just to kind of, that's how people go about it, and really thinking about how that impacts the audience for this webinar. It's really down to the skill level and the cost that you require. So if you think of the simple one we talked about, it's quite low cost. You need to be able to have it's not a standard or the most cheap Excel package, but certainly Office 365. If you have it, you can do what you need to be able to do. If you want to publish the likes of Power BI reports throughout your organization and have them automated going to people, again, there's a license associated with that, but it's a 3-figure per year for one organization. If you want to have multiple people having it, then you have to buy multiple licenses. But what I'm saying is it's not that expensive. From a business point of view, it's not expensive compared to what the benefits that you get. And the skill level, as I said, really isn't. It's not minimum skill level, but if you've got somebody who's slightly technical, they'll want to do this type of thing. They'll be interested in it, and it's not easy to get that skill into their heads. The traditional, it's the skill level again. It's not much beyond learning how to do stuff in Excel. It's as I said, SQL and Python is probably as much as any organization is going to need to pull data in. And learn the method of how to do it, but it's not low. The main thing about it is the cost. It does really have to be managed as a project. So you're pulling people out, either your own internal people, or you're getting external consultants and whatever it is. It has to be designed. It's very fixed. It's very rigid. So it's quite costly. So it's something that if you are going to grow, and this is something that's important to you for the next 2 to 3 years, your business people would invest in, but it really is an investment decision. For the big data, as I said, around skill level is really high. To be able to set this type of stuff up, you really need what you're doing. You need to be practical programmer like be able to do it. But it's not overly expensive because it's a fairly proliferated market at the minute, and a lot of people are offering these services. So it's something I would say, okay, right, if it's something that you do need, if you're a customer-facing organization, you're trying to basically get a lot more customers, it's something maybe you should consider. You can get some really good data, get some really good insights to show where you can go with your business. So don't say don't do it, but just be aware you're going to be using somebody else to do it. So just say, cost and scale level is a very for each approach, and most SMEs and organizations don't have the required skills to do the traditional big data, so you're going to be getting it outside. So before I go on to how, have you any other questions, Kieran? Kieran, I think you're making me mute.
Thank you. I'm muted there. The classic. We always do that one. And we do have a couple of, thank you, Caroline. We do have a few questions that are popping in here. One of my colleagues, Michelle Riley, Michelle's curriculum area manager in our business team. And she's talking really about analytics, and she's talking about, she's quite confident using Excel for data extraction. Power BI is really good. She's used Quick too. Her question really is, she's used a wee bit of Python, maybe Excel for data analytics. Which software to use if she was doing an advanced data analytics program? What would be the software to use?
I would go for SQL first of all, SQL. So if you have Python skills, that's great. But it's more around the design of what you're getting out. It'll add bells and whistles. Whereas the SQL is a pure query tool. It's about getting data into a table. So pulling data from one area into another area. So we'll do SQL first of all, definitely, to make sure you get data. Python will definitely, it's really good at doing part of the cleansing side of things. But it's really, if you're serious about taking data out of ERP systems, you need both.
Well, I might bring Sarah if she's willing to come in the end, because Sarah is recently qualified in Python. She's not going to thank me for doing this, but I know that. But I might bring Sarah into the conversation towards the end. And there's another question here. It's more about like customer segmentation that you mentioned earlier on there. What software package did you use? What were the benefits, the increased efficiencies, increased sales? For the customer segmentation one.
Yeah, again, Nick, the instance that I had is we had an old ERP legacy system, and again, SQL. I used a bit of SQL to get data out. We brought it into tables, which we had another guy in our organization, which he designed reports. We didn't have Power BI at that stage, like it was 4 or 5 years ago, like it was how long it was. And it's a case of we knew that there's a problem with we needed more data to get to get an informed decision made. So we went backwards to okay, what has happened, and we used the data first of all. And then once we started taking a look at that and seeing trends, then we saw okay, right, that there's segmentation needs to happen here. We're lumping these types of customers in, and we're treating the same way from a pricing and from a sales point of view. Whereas we need to segment it better. We need to have a more technical salesperson in that area. The data coming out showed that, like with the leads that we were delivering.
And just clarify again, what package was that you used for it?
We just had an old ERP system which had a CRM functionality in it and a sales and warehousing, and we were pulling all that data out, bringing it in through SQL into web tables, and getting the reports. And once we got the reports and we pulled the data out and looked at it in different ways. So as I'm saying, like I kind of segmented it into 3 simple packages. It's really a spectrum. So and one of those things I probably should have said is there is the business analytics side where you just want to see what's happening, and once you see what's happening, it drags you down a different direction. And I think that's the segmentation one. It showed very clearly like something was happening within that customer area, and once we started,
I certainly know on the ground and across the business support team, quite often I'm asked about that as businesses are growing. And I was dealing with one company, and very early on we were looking at e-commerce packages, and we went through a very introductory basic one called Big Cartel, you're probably familiar with. And I mean, I was learning a lot as we were going along, but quickly she was asking about, well, Kieran, how do I segment my customer base? And I was going, I was starting to struggle. And that's at early level. That's an SME. And I know it can be a minefield, but I think your answer there is useful. And against
again, it's kind of, you know, I'll be moving on to the next few slides, but it is about identifying what the problem is, and it's about, in that case, segmentation is the value add, you know, the value proposition to your customer. That's what that's always about. So like if you mixed up the value proposition by not segmenting properly, then that's something you need to fix. And you know, it's the use business analytics or data analytics to show that's the case.
So Jimmy, if you want to continue with your presentation at the end, Jimmy, I'm going to bring my colleague Michelle in, who's the curriculum area manager in the business team, and she's responsibility for our higher level apprenticeships among many other courses and programs. So Michelle's going to come in for a bit of a chat at the end, if that's okay. But far ahead.
Yeah, no worries. So move on to how. Again, I'm keeping this at a very high level. Like, we can get into tutorial type approach here, but it would take far too long, it would take days. So really looking at it and thinking about it, it's a bit similar to the high level approach of what it is. You know, the implementation approach kind of always follows the same areas too. So the main thing is to make sure you're very specific about what you want to achieve. So knowing what your objectives and your outcomes are and having a project plan around that's very important. So once you have done that, you basically you should basically follow these steps all the time. So we identify your data source, as I said earlier. There has to be cleansing. So data source, that's your grab. You're doing your cleansing. Figure out where you're going to store it, and that will be determined on how you're getting it and where you need to store it. And then the Excel or the packages, the Power BI or the Click or whatever, they'll do the define of the relationships, analyze and evaluation reports and insights. So a lot of people focus on these last three areas, whereas kind of the point I'm trying to hammer through here is like, these first 5 steps will determine how successful you are in the last 3. So those are just as important. One thing to say is, if you identify your problem and you start working on it, and this happens with a lot of people, is and it just gets too big. The project starts stall because people don't have the time and there's too much to do. So split into smaller sub projects. Sit and look at it again and go, listen, what's the most important part of this? So do it first. We're talking about SMEs and small businesses. Time is not something you have a lot of. So make sure that you're focusing on the things you need to do. If it's too big, make it into something small.
Jimmy, can I come in there? You see, when you're defining the relationships and like getting to define the problem, in the old days, and going back to whiteboards here in offices, right? You would have actually drawn that out, and you'd be familiar from wireframing and things like that, and the process maps and mapping and stuff. But you would have actually written out the problem and maybe taken a photograph of it.
Absolutely. This is the point I'm making, Kieran. Exactly. You need to know the problem that you're trying to solve. That's critical to this. So if you go in to try and do business analytics, and not understand what you're trying to solve, you get nowhere. you get somewhere, but there's still a lot of time.
I guess what I'm maybe getting at then is that still valid? And I call that an old traditional approach, but is that still valid of getting people in a room and or we may not be able to do that? However way we do that, I know there's lots of software.
Yes, again with problem solving, you tailor it according to what suits the company. So like I've been in situations where this type of thing was run like an IT project, and you had IT people who run it. So they've got different ways to do things. Everything was put up on a bit of software of some sort, but it was presented up on a screen eventually because people had to sit in a room and talk about it. But and I've been in lots of other smaller businesses where it was exactly like that, Kieran, where you had the lean approach, the brown paper and the post notes. And you did that first of all, and business analytics was just part of a wider project to solve something. There's other ones where we said we don't have a proper data strategy, so how are we going to go about it? And it was the whiteboard and people with actions, and actions in a project plan just stored in an Excel spreadsheet, and we talked about it every couple of weeks and got it implemented.
Okay, good stuff.
So it's problem solving first. Well, this is a tool to aid problem solving, which is what most business is about, or business management anyway. But it's a very powerful tool, and it makes the problem solving a lot quicker and a lot easier. So if the target problem is too big, split it up. And again, speaking about SMEs, bigger organizations, because they want to kind of control the bucking horse that they currently have, because they're growing all the time. They want a bit of rigidity in their systems, and sometimes they do use these business analytics systems to drive process change, to say this is the way you have to follow the process. But for most SMEs and small business, you can't really do that, because you're doing what you're doing at the minute, but in 6 months' time, you all know it could have changed, and especially in the last year and a half. Oh my goodness, do we need any more change? No, we don't. But it's probably going to happen. So that's kind of the implementation approach, and again, this is not kind of stringent. It's a spectrum, same as it what it is ago. But if you look at it, most projects will follow these steps. So that's kind of what you do. So just a quick case study. Again, something that's involved in myself. A very simple, high level, local manufacturer, service provider. Problem was around the importing of the materials, and we imported from India, China, Vietnam, imported from a lot of other areas too, but coming from those countries, we had a lot of problems. We had an ERP system, legacy one, and we used to plan materials, and we had a factory scheduling system which took the dates from our purchase orders and said, okay, right, that's the date it's going to come in, that's the date you've requested it, I'm going to plan my factory according to that. But as usually happens, deliveries weren't accurate. So we are constantly changing the plan. The plan wasn't efficient. Because the plan wasn't efficient, then we ended up having some customer problems because we didn't ship on time, because we couldn't make the stuff in time. So that was the definition of the problem, and we needed to solve something. And we knew it was around the deliveries. We knew stuff was being delivered, but we looked at it and we said, it's a case we don't really know when it's being delivered. If we knew when it was going to be delivered, we'd be able to plan our factory a bit better and tell our customers when they're getting their stuff. So we approached it, and looking at it, the same boxes put up, we needed to get our objectives, and we needed to identify where we're going to get our data grab and cleansing, how are we going to go about that, where are we going to store it, what type of analysis and visualization do we need, and finally, the management team wanted to have reports and insights as to what we need to do. That was the real focus of this. That was the impact we need to get. So from an objectives point of view, we said it's clear, we need to get more accurate data when the stuff's going to come into the factory, and the outcome of that will be we will improve customer satisfaction and the factory efficiency will improve. Then we said, well, where is this data? So at that time, we were only using our own internal ERP data, but we said, okay, right, the supplier, we need to know when their plan is shipped and stuff. We need to know when it actually goes out their door. So that was on their ERP system. They were saying, well, happy enough, if we can post it to a spreadsheet that sits in a web portal, we let you have it, and we update it once a day. Then say, okay, well, then there's the container. So how do you get the container data? And this is the one where we said, okay, well, how can you get everything? But we took a look at it, and we found a number of websites that update the container location for each vessel, and it's updated every hour. So and it gives it an ETA, so it knows when it's going to be getting into the port. And the last bit was we had a carrier who was taking the stuff from the port to our back dock. And again, have a chat with them. Yes, we know we've got a planning system as well, and we know 2 weeks in advance roughly when we're going to get. And yes, we share that data. So we identified very quickly, these bits of data were available. So how are we going to get it into the format that we require? And this is where we said, okay, right, for the ERP systems, they were in different formats. Some Oracle, one was an SAP system. So we needed to use a bit of SQL, but it was fairly simple tables because it wasn't an awful lot of information. It's just delivery dates when it comes to it. Your products and delivery dates and table numbers. That's really what you required. And for the web data, did a bit of digging about, and we saw that the Power Query functionality was able to pull that data. We were lucky in that it was sitting in tables. If it had been in a different text type format, we probably would have gone down and get an external solution to pull the data in first. But we were lucky it was in tables. We were able to pull it into an Excel spreadsheet using the functionality. And because it was coming in from both SQL and Excel, we stored it on a local server just on a table. Again, we had an IT guy. I don't know how that was done, to be honest myself. I'm not IT technical, but he put it in tables. I was able to get it. That's the main thing. And we set it up that it was an automatic feed once a day. So that meant that we were able to set up, we just do it through Excel. It was a few years back, so we didn't have Power BI back then. And we basically just set up an analysis which showed the delivery dates of every part and every PO. And that was very simply available. And what it also did is, okay, right, this is the date you're planning for it. It identified when stuff was going to be early and identified when it was going to be late. And because we had that, then the factory planner, he had a graphic view that he looked at every day and said, okay, these are the work orders that are at risk. And once he knew they're at risk, he could make a decision to make an improved factory plan, which improved efficiency, and he could inform customer service that this is going to be on time or it's not going to be on time. So our customer satisfaction improved, our factory efficiency improved, and our deliveries actually improved. So very simple business analytics case study where we use data to give us insights to make better decisions about what
Just jumping in there, most on this probably webinar will know what ERP. I didn't until today. Enterprise resource planning. I mean that's a common term then across the industry, is it?
Yeah, it is. It's where people, smaller business, will have their finance on Sage, and they'll have their factory plan on Excel, and they'll have their customer relationship on Monday or one of those ones. Like, it's where you said, okay, I'm big enough that I can afford this, and I want to control it.
Okay, so ERP is a collective, like an umbrella term, then, is it?
It's an umbrella term for any system that looks after your enterprise's data needs. That's what it is.
Okay, that's super.
So that's what it is. I've explained what it is and how you go about it, and just a wee example of how it can be done. So what are the next steps? Quite simple. So if you do have these types of problems where you've got recurring problems, and you think there's data out there that would help me, I find it very difficult to figure out what's going on all the time, or where the problem is. If I knew where it was, I could know how to fix it. And if you do have somebody in your organization who's got a bit of skill in Excel or Power BI, whatever it is, then it's quite simple. You get in touch, have a chat with us, and we can certainly, we can have a chat and see if there's something we can do for that. Our approach would be an upskilling about how to go about it. So it would be upskilling on how to bring in a new process for yourself to do this type of thing. And these are the support organizations.
Yeah, well. At that stage, if you want to just hold at that slide for a second, because I'm now going to bring Aisling. If you're okay to come in here, Aisling. Jimmy, we'll come back to you in a wee second. Aisling, would you be okay to come in and talk a little bit about the support that we offer through the business support team, please?
Yes, hi Kieran. Thanks, Jimmy, for that presentation so far. I suppose, as Kieran said, my job is really just to come in and give you a bit of a feel for what we can offer you here in business support. So, at the minute, most recently, we have the Skill Up Flexible Skills Fund, which is funded by the Department for the Economy, and it's really like a COVID relief programme. It's for to upskill everybody who has been impacted by coronavirus. So it's basically, there's no eligibility at all. It's anybody can do these courses, and there's a whole wide range of areas to upskill yourself in. So we have most of them full now for this year, but we're recruiting now for September 22 courses. So get in touch with us if there's anything that you would like to upskill in. As well as that, we also have the Skills Focus programme, which is also funded by the Department for the Economy, and it's for businesses under 250 employees or social enterprises. And as well, there's a wide range of areas of courses in that. But most popular, I suppose, in this area would be the Innovate Us programme, which would be what Jimmy and Kieran would work on. It's funded by the Department for the Economy, and it offers up to 30 to 60 hours of mentoring. So it'd be like Jimmy coming into your business to help you upskill on a kind of one-to-one basis for an innovative product, process or service. So if any of you are interested and you fall into that category in terms of, looking to upskill in Power BI or something, we could hopefully help you through that and get you the 60 hours of mentoring. So do reach out to us. Following on from that, we do have innovation vouchers as well, which are funded by Invest NI, and a lot of people follow on from an Innovate Us into doing an innovation voucher, but it's important to note with that programme we do have a VAT element. We do have bigger programmes as well, like higher level apprenticeships and apprenticeship programmes, fusions and KTPs, which kind of offer you the opportunity to bring a student or a graduate into your business. So that's, as you can see, we have loads of programmes to offer you. So if you have a need or you just want to have a chat with us about maybe an idea that you have, reach out to us and one of the team will be only too happy to help. The number to get us on is, the email to get us on is betterbusiness@src.ac.uk. but probably most handy will be after this, we're going to send out an email which will have the link to this recording on YouTube, so you can forward it on to anybody who's interested. There'll be an evaluation form as well, and on the evaluation you can request a call back. So if anybody would like to find out more information, if you just select yes on your evaluation form, one of us will give you a call early next week and hopefully get you signed up to one of our programs. So thanks.
That's excellent. That's great, Aisling. Thanks very much for that. Jimmy, I'm going to bring you in now, and also Michelle, if we can get Michelle in as well, Caroline. And we have, as we're waiting for Michelle and Jimmy to come back, and hello, Michelle. Jimmy, that was great. Thanks very much for that. I really took in there when you're talking about the example that you used from a couple of years ago. That made a lot of sense to me, and I think what happens on a personal level when I'm ordering stuff, and as long as I know that it's coming from some of the destinations that you mentioned, as a customer, I'm not as disappointed. You know, and I have waited on things in this room that some came the next day and some came 3 weeks later. Some I needed the next day, others I didn't. So it's that level of customer satisfaction that your system, that the example that you used was really, really good from a customer base, knowing that it's going to be 2 weeks till it gets delivered. Well, the expectation level has decreased, and the satisfaction level, if it arrives before that, well and good. So I thought that was very good. You in that example as well, you had this what I would looked at like 6 blocks, 6 steps. And is that your own system that you use, that you've come up with as a consultant?
No, it can be recognised industry-wise, Kieran. Okay. That's those types of things that you need to do. Like if you wanted, McDonald did a search. If you had got a consultancy, and like they would follow roughly the same steps, like, you know. So, and I'd say I haven't really looked at it recently, but I'm pretty sure if you went through the Power BI online training,
yeah,
that they would come up with, you know, it might be different words, but they look like roughly the same thing.
Well, a colleague that has come in as a question. I'm not going to bring Marie in, but I know Marie. Would R Studio be an option? I don't know what R Studio is.
It rings a bell. I don't know what it is, like, to be honest with you. So if it's a graphic package that pulls data in tables, then it will be definitely suitable. And I'm not a big advocate. I'd use Power BI, so I'd be an advocate of Power BI. But okay. You know, I use ClickView as well, and I was an advocate of it when I was using it. Like, so they're all very good. So if it gives you what you require, then go for it.
Yeah. You're being offered positions on the chat window here, Jimmy. Lecturing positions out of this webinar. So obviously it's making sense what you're talking about. Sarah, are you going to jump in for a minute? I don't know if I can get Sarah in, because Sarah as well is very knowledgeable on this. And we were chatting during the week. She's shaking her head going no, but she really is. Sarah, I know you have used, if I'm right, and correct me if I'm wrong, Power BI?
No, I haven't got as far as Power BI yet. I've been working with Power Automate as a way of how we treat our data as we gather it. Mostly for these webinars, you know, when we put out our form to ask for people to register, how we process that as we receive that data, and then and what we do with it. The next step, I presume, would be to go on and do the Power BI. I'm still learning. It's early days, but I think that's the next step, and would like to move that way.
It's a very broad field, sir. Like I said, that the most recent project I was involved with Fusion, it was, you know, there was a guy who went, you know, he did this and he did Power BI, but he was a technical head, and he went straight on to Power Apps. And I've started digging into those myself. They are hugely powerful.
Well, yeah, I was looking at that, and I kind of stepped away then.
They're very technical. Like, you do have to go. You have to spend like a 6 month.
And Sarah, you've also done Python.
Yeah, I took the opportunity of doing one of the flexible skills courses myself, and I did the Python, the MTA Python. I just really enjoyed it, and it helps to kind of remember how to process that. You know, because you're thinking in a logical. What do you do with this data, how it comes in, and what you can do. So, you know, but then you get a wee bit too caught up, can I do this, rather than should I do this? So you have to kind of take a step back again. So that's, you get a bit too caught up in all the things that can be done with your data, and you don't realize what should you be doing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, Jimmy, was there anything else you'd like to say before we close out?
Again, just to the point of all we make, you get in touch. Like there's lots of options. The college can offer a lot of options for you. Come and talk to us and tell us what the problem is, and I'm quite sure we can work on a solution for you.
So, listen, thank you very much to everyone. Thanks again. That was a great conversation this morning. Very informative, and taking on what Jimmy said about definition of the problem. Then we can look to how we go about it, being really critical this morning. So once again, thank you to Connected. Thank you to all the team. And today's is going to be put up on YouTube. So thanks again, everyone.